Okay, so we are live on YouTube and we are ready to go. So with that being said, Mr. Chair, if you would like to start our first public hearing for the intermunicipal transfer of a liquor license to 4J's and a C LLC for use at the premises located at 635 Cumberland Street.
Okay, thank you. We're going to call to order a public hearing June 18th, 2020 regarding the intermunicipal transfer of a liquor license to the 4J's and a C LLC for the use at the premises located at 633, 635 Cumberland Street. And I believe Mr. Airgood has a presentation for us, please.
I am present. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Ian Airgood, representing 4J's and a G LLC, the entity requesting the liquor license transfer. Present with me at my office today are Cindy Shea, the principal of the LLC, and her husband, William Shea Jr. We are proposing that the license be transferred into the city at the site of the former William Penn restaurant. We would like to note at the outset that our goal is not to reopen the William Penn restaurant as it has been known in the past. And we would also like to note that the prior owner and management will not be involved in this new venture. We are aware that the PLCB determined them to be, quote, no longer responsible persons or persons of ill repute as defined in the liquor code, and therefore would probably not be acceptable to the PLCB managers or employees of a licensed establishment. Also, we're aware of the factors which led to the PLCB's refusal to renew the William Penn's liquor license, and our goal is not to see those factors repeated. As far as the new establishment goes, a name has not been set for that yet. We have considered keeping the William Penn name based on the historical significance to the city of Lebanon, but we're also cognizant to the reputation that it has gained in the last few years. Another consideration as far as a name goes is Heroes, with the goal of catering to first responders, or possibly some combination of those names. Part of the reasoning for this request is that Cindy Shea's husband, William, is a majority owner of the premises. The premises is currently laid out as a bar, and it did receive renovations, approximately 6 months prior to the William Penn's license expiration. So it has all the features necessary for the operation of a bar. Also, they would like to see that building start producing income again. It's been functioning as a hot dog stand essentially since the liquor license has been terminated, and they would like to see that operating at full capacity again. Also, I'd like to note that in the event the liquor license transfer is approved by Lebanon City Council and also by the BLCB, they will be bound by the conditional licensing agreement that was imposed upon the William Penn prior to their shutdown. That CLA has additional requirements that are not present for every other liquor license. To summarize, if you haven't had an opportunity to read those, they are required to have proper employee and manager training and certification. They're required to have 2 security personnel Thursday through Saturday evenings. They must patrol the exterior of the premises every half hour. They must wand patrons coming in to prevent people from having weapons. They have to have a sufficient surveillance system, which already exists. They have to maintain a written list of banned patrons. They must scan everyone's ID who is purchasing alcohol and attend quarterly meetings with the chief of Lebanon City Police. So those are additional restrictions that would be on this license that are not on normal liquor licenses. And those will be in place until the PLCB sees fit to withdraw the conditional licensing agreement. Furthermore, about the building, Mr. Shea purchased that approximately 10 years ago. He did get a grant from the city, which will be, it'll become payable very soon. When he acquired the building, it was facing condemnation, so he did put a lot of capital into it to bring it up to code. So again, he would like to continue to generate income from this property, knowing that grant is going to become due soon. I believe I covered the majority of the points that I want. Oh, one other thing I wanted to address. We are still in the preliminary stages of this. Obviously, the intermunicipal transfer is a major step towards approval. So there's no employees hired or anything yet. Everything's still in the planning phases. One of the things that is a major change from the prior establishment is there's not a plan to be open late hours. Weekends especially, the current plan is to close by midnight. The plan is not to cater to a late night crowd. That's one of the major differences that they would like to impose. So I believe I've covered all the material that I intended to. The Shays are nodding yes, they don't have anything to add.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Airgood. Is there any questions from council concerning this intermunicipal transfer?
I have one, Chairman.
Oh, go ahead.
Do the Shays have any prior experience personally operating a restaurant or liquor establishment?
They do not. This is going to be their first foray into the restaurant and bar industry.
Okay, will they be working with a consultant of any sort?
Well, their plan is, once approvals start coming through, is to find an experienced manager, preferably from out of the area, who will help guide them through this process. But as of right now, they don't have someone on staff or on hand to provide them that kind of advice.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Keller?
I was going to ask, what is the current capacity for, and are they going to be utilizing both the restaurant and bar side?
So the temporary plan right now is to license both halves. Do you guys know what the capacity is?
I think it's 120 for both sides. Fire department, right? 240 total. No, I think it's 120 for.
Mr. Shea believes it's 120 for both sides.
Okay, so that's combined capacity. And I know that obviously we're in the middle of a pandemic. There are not options for outdoor seating there. So how does that impact capacity, and what are what's the plan for distancing and things like that?
So as of right now, again, everything's in the preliminary stages. They don't expect to be up and running anytime soon. The PLCB does take quite some time to approve a transfer. It could be several months before that gets approved. They have to send their inspectors out and everything. As of right now, I don't believe that the prior premises had outdoor seating approved. The PLCB can consider that if we make the request to do that, and it would include sidewalk style seating. But since it's along 422, PennDOT would also have to approve that based on my understanding. In my preliminary talks with Ms. Shea, they have not planned for that so far. That's just my understanding of how outdoor seating at facilities like this works.
Okay. And I know that they had said maybe they were going to be getting a consultant or a manager from out of the area. I know that their son, I think Willie, was a bartender there. Are there plans to have Willie bartend again?
The question was, do you guys intend to have Willie bartend again at the new facility? Your son?
No, my son never bartended there.
They claim he never bartended there, and I don't believe they have a plan for him to do so in the future.
Okay. All right. Thank you for answering.
Certainly.
That's all for me.
Mayor?
Yes. Attorney Airgood, can you tell me who represents or makes up the 4 J's and 1 G?
So there is a sole member of that LLC, and that is Cindy Shea. The name, if you're asking where that comes from, is the middle initials of her grandchildren.
That's cute.
Okay, I have a question for Attorney Airgood. Is there, between the restaurant, will there be any future association with the previous operators?
So as of right now, Mr. Levendis is operating his hot dog shop for breakfast and lunch in the restaurant side, they're calling it. They may continue to lease that space to him in the future, but his operations would cease prior to the bar operations beginning. So Mr. Shea reports that he closes at 3 p.m. every day. They would intend to open the bar 3 to 4 p.m.
Okay.
So,
Any other questions from council?
I have a question. So the bar would not serve any type of food then while the bar's open? It would be strictly alcohol, no food?
No, for a restaurant liquor license, you are required to have a minimum amount of food available to patrons should they request it. So the plan at this point is to at least offer that minimal amount, which is required to possess a restaurant liquor license.
how is this going to impact parking, or what was the parking situation like before? Is it just street parking?
Parking, yes. The question is, how will this impact parking in the area?
I don't think it really should, because I thought most were walkers.
The bar was open since
Pardon one second. I'm going to pass the microphone to Mr. Shea. He can address that since he's owned the building for some time.
Thank you. Hi, Mr. Shea. Thank you for answering.
Oh, I can hear you now.
Okay.
My hearing's a little bad.
Thank you. I can hear you a little bit, but it was distant. Thank you.
I understand. I don't think it's going to be an impact because that bar has been there since 1928, and I assume they use the parking at the behind the lounge and behind Hack. And I think you had a lot of people that were walking there, but we are going to change the clientele. Trust me. I mean, I'm 68 years old. I have no desire. I really like the idea of the first responders, older people, more responsible, not looking. I mean, no, it's 2 o'clock. We are going to shut down at 12. We might only open at 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. That's it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from council?
The fire department occupancy for that property established at 75 for the William Penn lunchroom and 140 persons for the bar on the east side. That'll be a total of 215.
Thank you, Dwayne.
Thank you.
That is
Thank you.
2018.
Any other questions from council? Any questions from media?
I have one more question, actually. If you're going to be serving, it's going to be like a restaurant bar situation. So children will be allowed in, like will it be more of a family atmosphere where we could bring kids to eat with us, or is it going to be more of an adult establishment?
The Shays are reporting the restaurant side will absolutely be open to children as it's always has been. The bar area is going to be more adult oriented. And that'll partially be affected by the conditional licensing agreement, which requires ID scanners and bonding and so on and so forth.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions from media?
I don't see that anyone has raised their hand.
Okay. Any questions from the public?
No.
Okay. Any other questions from anybody for final call? Okay, thank you very much, Attorney Eargood and the Shays. And we're going to call this public hearing closed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so now, Mr. Chair, we may call to order the public hearing for the
Second public
zoning
hearing.
ordinance.
Okay. Okay, we're going to call this public hearing to order. This is June 18th, 2020. This is a public hearing to receive comments on Bill number 1, our Lebanon zoning ordinance. And Mayor, do you just want to give us a little overview here quick, please?
Yes. Amy, are you still good? Because I showed that you came back on as an attendee.
I know, that's what I was saying earlier. I was saying earlier that I called in and then it had me as an attendee and I didn't figure out how to disconnect that call. So I think I'm here twice.
Okay, that's all right. As
So,
long as you
But
don't
I
have
can hear you.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome. So let me just get my notes. So just a real quick recap, the city has been working on putting together this new zoning ordinance for more than 2 years. Our current zoning ordinance, those regulations have been in effect for more than 30 years. The ordinance and map have been updated on an as-needed basis without a rewrite during this period of time. So there have been numerous updates. And when we updated our early intervention program's 5-year plan several years ago, one of the action items was to have a rewrite of the zoning ordinance to assist with economic development efforts in the city. And we received funding to complete this task. So we put out an RFP, excuse me, and ultimately we selected Urban Research and Development Corporation to assist us in the process. Charlie, he's online with us, brings a huge amount of expertise and knowledge with him. He's also a perspective from other cities in the state, sister cities like Harrisburg, Bethlehem. He's worked on comprehensive plans for Bethlehem and Altoona, worked for Chester. So in addition to his background and numerous other projects that he's done, he's been an extremely big help for us. So we created a small steering committee that was made up of the city's economic development team, our people who have worked on our early intervention program, our city's zoning officer, the Main Street manager, bid manager, John Tice, who is also a retired realtor, and myself, because of in my past life being the chief zoning officer for Lebanon County. So we provided oversight on the rewrite of the ordinance. We conducted field work, looked at what is existing out in the field, looked at making this more user-friendly, bringing us up to date with new types of uses that are more relevant to today's world than 30 years ago. And we held key interviews with people from the community that represented a downtown stakeholder, the city engineer, a major property owner, a realtor, someone from county planning, the city council president, someone from the historical society, a representative from the Latino community, and a representative from the city's planning commission and zoning hearing board. So it was very well-rounded. The city's planning commission held a hearing as required by the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code on November 14th of last year, and that was pursuant to public notice. The Lebanon County Planning Department provided a copy of the proposed ordinance to them back in November of last year as well, which was at least 45 days prior to this hearing. We received a letter of recommendation from the City Planning Commission that's dated March 9th of this year. We received a letter of recommendation from the County Planning Department on February 20th of this year. City Council was presented a summary of the proposed zoning ordinance at its May 21 pre-council meeting. The ordinance was adopted on introduction at the May 26 council meeting. The public hearing today on June 18th is prior to the potential adoption on final at the June 22nd meeting of council. Public notice was provided in the Lebanon Daily News on June 1st and June 8th of this year. We posted the ordinance and map on our website, and due to COVID-19, also was allowed to be reviewed by appointment through the city clerk. We provided a hard copy to the Lebanon Daily News and to the law library upstairs. Those are all of the items that are required by the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code. So with that being said, I do have these, which I can mark with exhibit numbers, and they will be a part of the record to show that we did comply with that law. So at this time, what I'd like to do is turn it over to Charlie, our zoning consultant. And again, Charlie comes with a great background and perspective working with other cities. So Charlie, if you would like to give a brief summary of the ordinance in general, and then we will open it up for public comments.
He's on mute.
Yeah. see.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we
Yep.
can.
I'd like to provide a summary for about 5 minutes, and then we're available to answer any questions and comments anyone may have. We spent a lot of time on the zoning map, as the mayor described. There are not revolutionary changes to the zoning map, but we did look at it carefully and proposed a number of changes to better relate to what's actually exists out in the field in the city. Particularly to look for opportunities for economic development, while also balancing that with the need to protect residential neighborhoods. That's the main reason why we have zoning, is to protect residential neighborhoods. One of the goals was to reduce nonconformities. Where there was a cluster of existing businesses, we wanted to recognize that with a business district. It's much easier to get financing if a business is in a business district than if it's in a residential district. There is one proposed new residential district. It's called medium low density residential. It would allow singles and twin homes. That includes areas north of Pershing Avenue and south of Laurel Street. We spent a lot of time with the working on the downtown zoning. The main emphasis there is to require that any new building would have to be built close to the sidewalk to avoid a situation where there's demolition and someone builds a mini mall with a big parking lot in front and disturbs the pedestrian orientation of the downtown. The neighborhood commercial district is very important. We did propose to use that in additional locations in the city, particularly where there were clusters of businesses that had been residentially zoned, or some areas that had been limited to offices. And by using the neighborhood commercial district, we can provide additional commercial development opportunities. One example, for instance, is Cumberland Street from 4th Street east to Lincoln. It's currently limited to an office district that's proposed to go to a neighborhood commercial, which would give some opportunities for additional business uses there. The neighborhood commercial district's designed to provide for housing and types of businesses that are good neighbors for housing. Almost all the industrial areas of the city would change over to what's called a light industrial commercial. What this does is it gives you a wide range of development opportunities because you can do most types of industry and most types of commercial businesses. You have a choice. But then the heaviest types of industries are be limited to only 2 sites in town. Some part of the old Bethlehem Steel Complex and the area around the scrapyard in the west part of town. By doing that, we're able to provide for a wide range of businesses in industrial areas of the city, but keep out the heaviest industries and only allow them in 2 parts of the city, so we avoid nuisances and hazards. We have a legal obligation to have some place for the heaviest uses, and we'd limit them to 2 sites. The floodplain ordinance, we worked with the county on meeting new federal standards for the floodplain ordinance. It's not a revolutionary change, but there is a new, more accurate floodplain map that the federal government has provided that's being adopted. Generally, we propose to add more restrictions on the less desirable uses and streamline the process for the desirable uses. So one example, for instance, is downtown to allow live-work units. That's where you can live and work in the same area with no walls or limitations. If you want to have an artist studio, we're not saying this percentage has to be business, this percentage has to be residential. You can use the space as you wish and a great amount of flexibility. The draft would make it easier to have a unit in your home to take care of a relative, but it will be limited to a relative who needs care. And then lastly, historic demolition. We proposed an area in which demolitions of older buildings would need review and approval. And it's generally parts of Cumberland Street where I have the most historic buildings. parts of Chestnut Street, parts of 8th Street, 9th Street. And in this area, if you wanted to demolish a building built before 1940, you would need to go to the zoning hearing board and show that there's a valid reason for the demolition. It's not saying you can't demolish the building, but you have to go through a public review and approval process to avoid thoughtless demolitions of important buildings. And there's also incentives for people who have these buildings. For instance, if you have one of these buildings in a residential district, you could also do offices that you might not normally be allowed to do. That historic provision does not regulate door replacements, roofing materials, window replacements. It doesn't regulate the routine changes that people make. What it does propose to control is demolition of the porch, the architectural details, or the building itself would need review and approval. That's an overview of what's in the draft ordinance, and I'd like to hear any questions and comments anyone may have.
Thank you for all your hard work, Charlie. We really appreciate it. Is
Thank
there
you.
any questions for go ahead, Mary.
I would just like to add one thing about floodplain. The FEMA, our federal, has provided federal guidance to us on our floodplain regulations. This is extremely important to the city of Lebanon, and that people who have floodplain on their property participate in the National Flood Insurance Program. And that is subsidized by the feds so that the people can afford to have flood insurance on their properties. So it's critical that we adopt the regulations that are put forth from FEMA and PEMA. And FEMA has established a deadline of July 8th, and they are not extending it even because of COVID. Because we didn't really want to adopt the zoning ordinance in a Zoom meeting, but this is kind of where we're at. So it is critical that we get these floodplain regulations adopted. They have been reviewed and approved by FEMA. They are standard for the entire state of Pennsylvania. And that's included in the zoning ordinance.
Thank you, Mayor. Any questions for Charlie from council? Any questions from media?
No.
Any questions from the public?
Yes. From Kyle Brown. Okay, Kyle.
Hi, everyone. How are you? Can you see me and hear me?
Yes, we can.
Awesome.
Yes.
Sounds good.
Hi, Kyle.
Hi there. So I just want to say thank you for having me on. I'll try to be as quick and thorough as possible. I didn't really have a question in particular. It was more so some comments in regards to the new zoning overhaul. And in particular, it would be for short-term renting. Charlie, I'm assuming you know a bit about Airbnb, vacation rentals, Verbo, and all of that. Sure. So with a newly adopted overhaul that's going to be passed, it will only be it's going to be capped at 30 days max per year.
If you are not living in the unit.
That's correct. So yeah, if it's not owner occupied during the reservation.
Actually, it just has to be occupied by a permanent resident. It doesn't have to be the owner.
Correct. Yeah. So my question is, or my concern would be, if there was any way to do more research on the part of the council, just to see the benefits that would come from increasing that 30-day cap. I personally have my own property, an Airbnb Verbo vacation rental in Lebanon City, and it is doing amazing. And I would love to continue doing it. I was hoping, from what I understand, I would be grandfathered in, but I would have to follow the long-term regulated rental as far as that goes, which I already do. But I guess just I'm here to kind of promote and help others who wanted to start and bring tourism into the city. And with that 30-day cap of not living in the property during the reservation, it's really putting a limit on how many people are going to be able to come into the city and give that tourist dollar.
Any part of the ordinance can be revised at any time. So if you If the city decides that that it's something you'd like to see, you certainly can adjust that. What most communities are doing is in residential areas, they prefer that a unit not be continually rented for short periods of time over and over and over again if there's not a permanent resident unit. So they make a distinction between someone living in the unit and renting out a bedroom as needed versus the house not having any permanent resident and it's only used for short-term rentals. So the way that this draft ordinance is written for Lebanon is anybody can rent out any unit for 30 days at a time. In addition, anybody can rent out their home for short periods of time for up to 30 days a year. And that's intended to cover times when people may rent their home out while they're on vacation. So you go away for 2 weeks, you rent out your home. You go away for another 2 weeks, you rent out your home. The intent was that there have been some horror stories in other parts of the state where a house became a party house and it was rented every weekend to large crowds of people. And it really caused parking problems and noise problems for the neighbors. That's the extreme case that we're trying to avoid. There's
That was my
alternatives out there.
initial, sorry to interrupt, Charlie. That was my initial concern, Kyle, when I read this. You know, I live in the city, obviously, and we live in a neighborhood with a lot of neighbors, and the noise in our neighborhood is sometimes problematic. I know exactly where your home is. I used to live in that neighborhood as well. It's a really, really nice residential neighborhood, and my only concern was for the neighbors having to deal with noise and things like that. Mayor, I don't know, is there some way that we could write an ordinance where if there is a short-term rental situation where the neighbors are complaining and it does become problematic, that they then lose their license? I had seen that Kyle, in his list of suggestions, said that if there are going to be short-term rentals, we could possibly require a permit similar to the rental permits, which would generate revenue for the city. But could we put something in addition that if there are, you know, so many complaints, then that license is revoked and it can no longer be used as a short-term rental?
Well, it's better if something, like you said, is in ordinance form. What I was thinking, I think Charlie made a great point about Airbnbs in residential areas and preferring to have that there is someone who's permanently occupying it, or it's not continually rented over and over. But, you know, could you allow it by special exception use or conditional use, that there's a separate board that reviews it case by case, and, you know, possibly it's only either allowed for the person who applies for it, or there's, you know, specific conditions placed on it. And if someone violates it, then they're violating a zoning hearing board decision or a city council decision. As a former zoning officer, when you place conditions on the granting of a use like that, they are hard to enforce. However, I mean, if you are trying to, you know, make something work and you just don't want it to be an outright permitted use, that would be the way to do it. It's
So
something that
so
I
Kyle
think,
could apply for something. Go ahead.
excuse me, Amy, I'm sorry.
I was just saying, so Kyle could apply to have like some sort of variance to be able to use it.
Well, what we had
continue using it as is.
What we had discussed doing for Kyle's specific property, because it's in existence, that he, with the adoption of the new ordinance, that we would look at certifying him as a non-conforming use, and then his use would be allowed to continue unless it would be superseded by a permitted use, but or preceded.
Okay. I had also seen that Kyle wrote something in his list of notes as suggestions, which that was a really nice list, Kyle. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Do you want me to put something up, Kyle?
Yeah, I mean, I can go over a few things. They're mostly regarding my property, but like I said in my emails to Chris and to yourself, Mayor Capello, was I think using my property as kind of like a model would be awesome, and kind of going off that. And on a different topic, I completely am on line, and I want it to be regulated, and I think it should be regulated as much as possible. There's no way, I mean, you don't want them just popping up anywhere with bad hosts and people that aren't doing well like I am when it comes to like house rules. So like what you see here, I mean, I'm very strict with things, and that's where the house rules reminder comes in regards to parking. All of my neighbors know what it is, that it's a short-term rental. They're all on board. They're all fine with it. All of the direct neighbors, so the ones beside, the ones in front, even down the road. I don't think there is any on the block that don't. I've talked to them all. And in regards to the parking issues, which I know can be an issue, both neighbors to the sides of the property asked that we save those spots for them, for their elderly family, which I do. And pretty much every guest abides by these rules. They all park directly in front of the property without blocking the driveways. I also have noise violations. So I have quiet time from 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. And these are all rules on this list that can be enforced. I have a camera outside. My neighbors have my phone number. They can all call me, text me if something is going on, at which point, if something is going on, which I'll add hasn't happened yet in the past year and however many months I've been doing it, I'll immediately go over there and kick them out. I mean, Airbnb and Verbo and whatever platform you listed on gives you that ability. I am the homeowner, and anyone who wanted to list their home and do what I'm doing can do the same thing. So, I mean, obviously I understand the noise issues and complaints from neighbors. And that's where being a good host, vacation rental host like myself would come in, where you're not allowing it to become a party house. Like you're focusing on families. And that's also where price point comes in. At $199 a night with a 2-night minimum most of the time, you're not going to have many teenagers or partiers wanting to come and rent that house out for $450 it usually is for 2 nights with the cleaning fee. So, I mean, that's very rare that it's going to happen in the neighborhood, but I completely understand those concerns. And then I also have, Mayor, the other page, if you have that on there regarding the key facts.
This is the key facts.
There should be another page attached to that, maybe the first one.
Kyle, where do you live?
320 South First Ave. So that's a block and a half down.
Where do you live?
Oh, I actually purchased a place in Granville, and I renovated it over the winter. I actually live at the property.
If you had to come into, if there was an issue, you'd be coming in from Granville.
Oh yeah, 20 minutes. My parents are closer. I mean, I have so many people that help me out with it, including the neighbor. If it really was an issue, I could have someone there within 5 minutes. The neighbor would just run over. Yeah.
I have, this is availability house rules. I had house rules and key facts up. I have thoughts on how to correct. Is it that one?
You can put it up and see what it is.
Or I can go to your links.
Yeah, the one I actually just highlighted a few things. I can actually pull it up on mine if it's not coming up here, and then go over it with you.
That's all I have too, Mayor. And then I have the 2 links to your listings on the actual VRBO and Airbnb sites, Kyle.
I mean, these are the pictures.
Yeah, you don't see the page with the 2 photos of the property and the listing pages.
Yeah, that one I had up.
Mayor, your screen hasn't changed.
Yeah.
What?
Your screen hasn't changed the entire time.
It hasn't.
No.
No.
Okay.
When you screen share, it doesn't share your desktop, it just shares the file you've selected. So you might need to click stop share and reshare.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's all right.
This is my first time doing this. You have to excuse me.
It's always fun.
As long as you don't share something you're not supposed to share.
So that's actually,
You have it. Good job.
that's actually just the listing.
Okay.
You should have got the one that says Red Door Retreat key facts and vacation rental website key facts. I'm sorry.
I didn't see a key facts, Kyle. I looked through all of the documents.
So that one I did have up, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you already had that one up.
That's all right. I can just go over it with you. It's on my screen. So just the key facts as far as my property goes that I think would make a really good model for other ones that wanted to start in Lebanon, being fully insured for short-term renting. So you already have homeowners insurance, but homeowners insurance does not usually cover short-term renting. So you definitely would want to get that, which I have. That's on the screen right there. So being fully insured for short-term renting through Allstate. I collect and pay local and state hotel occupancy taxes, and that's both to the treasurer's office and to the PA state. Compliant with the International Property Maintenance Code and with the long-term regulated rental ordinances. So that would be safety, fire extinguishers, exits, and everything like that. The neighbors are aware and accepting, like I said, regarding the non-conforming use. As far as the COVID-19, if that would be concerning, so I do provide guests with masks, gloves, sanitizer at the house, and I actually give a welcome basket to every reservation. Included in that welcome basket now, since I reopened in June in the yellow phase, those are all provided in the welcome basket. And I'm a huge supporter of supporting local business, shopping local. And when I started the Red Door Retreat and moved out of the property in the summer, I actually contacted a bunch of businesses and I partnered up with a few, and they all provide discounts, incentives for these reservations that are coming from out of state and out of the area to go there. Some offer 10% off, some offer certain things for a meal. Surprisingly, the last thing on the key facts would be average occupancy. So last year, my average occupancy was 80% monthly. And that was with blocking certain days off because I didn't have a professional cleaner at the time. This year, since I reopened in yellow phase for the next 3 months, I'm at 95 to 99% occupancy with the reservations received today. And these are all people that are coming from out of state and spending the dollar in the county, in the city. And almost all of them aren't coming for Lebanon. They're coming for Hershey, for Lancaster. And now with the COVID, they're just coming to get away from where they are to relax. And that's why I'm a big advocate for the short-term renting, because I think it will definitely bring a lot of money that will not come into the city, and it'll finally bring it in. As far as safety, the last part, both platforms do the guest identity verification. That's through government ID, third-party verification, social security numbers, even selfies. They match selfies up. There's a support hotline specifically for neighbors wishing to voice concern if there is a party, and that's through Airbnb and Vrbo. So if they didn't have my number, the neighbors, and they didn't know, they could call into those numbers. I have the ability to cancel a reservation if there is an issue, safety concern, security concern, and remove them for the property. On top of my short-term renting insurance through Allstate, there's also a $1 million host protection insurance, liability insurance, both through Vrbo and through Airbnb. So that's kind of used as a backup if something does happen. All in all, I just wanted the consideration just to think about changing, amending, so there can be future hosts who actually care about what they're doing and want to help the city and help other people in the process, and then maybe increase that 30-day cap when it comes to short-term renting. I think that was it, guys.
Okay.
I'd like to make a comment just to follow up with Kyle's remarks. I understand that for a lot of folks, Airbnb is a different type of occupancy, and it's new to a lot of us. I personally, honestly can't remember a time when I haven't traveled and used Airbnb exclusively. I don't remember the last time I've stayed in a hotel. And what you all need to keep in mind is that just as much as a host values and wants to protect their property, those folks that use Airbnb want to protect their profile and the reviews that a host gives them. So when it comes to the behaviors that an occupant might engage in while using an Airbnb rented facility, there's a great deal on the line for them using their own account to do that. A lot of professionals use Airbnb, and with a property like Kyle's, I'm sure families and professionals are what he's getting a large majority of. I think we owe it to Kyle and the rest of the community that's engaging in activities like this to have some serious discussion surrounding this topic and find a way to responsibly enable folks to do this, because it does help our community socially and economically. And I'd really like to see us, Kyle and I have had some discussions about some of the gray answers he received from folks at the county and the city in his process, us put together some sort of guidebook for folks wanting to do this, so we can help them do it the right way and the way that we want them to.
I agree. We're actually at an Airbnb right now. We just arrived today, and we do primarily vacation and Airbnbs as well.
And Amy,
and I like, yeah.
Amy, if I can, may I ask, and Chris, why do you choose vacation rentals over hotels?
For us, oh, go ahead, Chris. For us, we like more of a unique experience, and we like the privacy that it offers.
Right.
Yeah, it'd be very similar for me. It's definitely, I definitely appreciate the touches that a host will put on a home. And I really actually enjoy going places where sometimes you have the opportunity to meet the host as well. They provide a unique experience knowing the area and being more engaged. A Fortune 500 hotel chain doesn't really have the same investment in you enjoying your experience that someone like Kyle would.
Right, exactly. And I do echo what Kyle said earlier. He's obviously doing a phenomenal job, and I would like to see his listings and just his home and everything and his whole setup be used as a model for, moving forward, and maybe even make it a requirement that they have certain house rules and they need to set certain things like quiet hours and, definitely use that as a model and sort of a footprint moving forward. So Kyle, you're doing a very good job, and I appreciate that you're taking into account the concern of neighbors and keeping the integrity for the city. So I appreciate that.
Thanks, Amy. I appreciate it.
This is something that we could, even after moving through bill number 1, Charlie, this is something that we could come back and revisit.
Yes, I would suggest that you maintain a list of items that you might want to give a second thought to, particularly as you administer an ordinance. There might be some other items that arise, and then address them all in one amendment. Just save yourself time and money.
Okay. I believe it's, and Mr. Brown, your property is awesome. And you're the poster child for the best Airbnb there is,
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, but we all know, there's good, there's bad, there's people that don't do. It looks like something though that like you said, maybe with conditions and stuff, we could come back and review this along with several other things that we're looking at within an appropriate period of time. Does anybody else have any other comments?
Oh, Kyle, you did send that list. I found it. It's in the letter that you sent. It was the second page.
Oh,
So
all right.
just in case you were wondering, just in
Thanks.
case you were like, wait a minute. You did. It was on the second page of your letter. So
All right.
thank
Sounds
you.
good.
And I appreciate it. Was very thorough what you sent. So I really
I
appreciate
tried to be. I was prepared.
it. You were.
Okay.
Good job. You did your homework.
Does anyone else have any other comments on this public hearing for the zoning ordinance? Any questions from the public? Any questions from media?
No.
Okay, hearing no more questions, then we're going to call this public hearing closed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Kyle.
Kyle.
Mr.
Thanks,
Brown?
guys.
Yep. Okay, is everybody reset?
Okay.
We good?
Yep.
We're going to call to order a pre-council meeting, June 18th, 2020. Our first thing on the agenda tonight is assignment of prayer, and that goes to Council Lady Amy Keller.
Thank you. Got it.
Ms. Keller, are you going to be back in town for Monday?
Oh yeah, we'll be back. We're coming Sunday. It's just a short little.
Okay. No,
extended
that's
Father's
fine.
Day
No,
weekend.
it's always good to get away. No problem. Thank you. And thank you for coming on board today. Okay.
Sure thing. Absolutely.
Okay. Next we have the approval of minutes. Minutes have been distributed to council members. along with the budget report also. Okay. Mayor, is there anything you wanted to bring us up to date with on the budget report?
Sure. So we are not quite at 42% of the budget year completed. Our revenue is at 45%. If we compare May 31 of last year to this year, our revenues were more than 58% last year. Our expenditures in 2020 as of May 31 are at 31%. Our expenditures last year were at 32%. So just to kind of hit on a couple of items that I think that we need to pay attention to. Our real estate tax revenue. So that is our second largest source of revenue. We are $1.1 million short in comparison to last year at this time. Our earned income tax, last month I made a statement that I thought the Paycheck Protection Program had made a significant impact on people being able to retain their jobs, and then subsequently the city receiving earned income tax dollars. That has definitely helped. And our earned income tax, we got a huge lump sum payment, and we're still trying to calculate for sure what that encompasses. And we, again, just like I stressed last month, really need to wait for the first week of July when we get that second quarterly report in to really know how our earned income tax was affected. Right now, we're about $90,000 short. Our local services tax were about $57,000 short compared to last year. Our rental property licenses are about $27,000 short. Vehicle code violations, this is a pretty big one. We're almost $62,000 short compared to last year at this time. The ordinance violations by police are about $8,000 short. Interest income, I indicated last month that the interest rate went like 50% lower. So we're a little over $10,000 short there. The rent of buildings and pavilions, because of the stay-at-home order, we're still looking at almost a $10,000 shortage there. And then our parking lot rentals, we're about $3,000 shorts in permits, a couple $1,000 short in zoning, and almost $14,000 short in building code permits. And then the last item that I'm going to recognize is our parking meters, because we, lax the parking meter requirement. We are a little over $33,000 short so far this year. So, the big ones are the real estate tax and the earned income tax and local services tax. Those are the three largest revenue sources. So again, we need to wait a couple more weeks to see how that's going to all play out. And again, everything right now for expenditure wise, besides budget and salaries and incidentals to those, have been basically cut. We put everything on hold so that we can try and get through this.
Okay, thank you for the update, Mayor. Does anyone from council have any questions? Okay, all right, moving on with our agenda tonight. We will have a department update from Melissa Quiones, the Director of Administration Assistant to the Mayor, and that will be at our Monday meeting. Thank you, Miss Melissa. That gives you the weekend to work more on it. Okay. We have next we have a resolution, one resolution tonight, and that's approving the transfer of a liquor license into the City of Lebanon from North Lebanon Township, A&M Amato Incorporated, to the 4 J's and a G LLC for premises at 633, 635 Cumberland Street, Lebanon. Who would like to take that resolution?
I'll take it.
Was that Mr. Wertz?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Thank you, Richard. Does anyone have any?
You're welcome, Wayne.
Thank you, sir. Does anyone have any questions concerning that transfer from council? I know we went over this at the public hearing, but just giving everybody a second thought here.
Chris Coyle from Levtown does have a question.
Sure.
Go ahead, Chris.
He said that he lost audio in his comment. I just read it. It said, will the Shays liquor license transfer be put? Oh, there you go. Okay.
I'm not sure if I'm being heard here.
Yes, you are.
Yes.
Okay, my question, real simply, not to bog this down, the Shays request to transfer the liquor license into the city, is that going to be then put on a full meeting agenda for a vote, or what happens next?
That is on for the June Monday's meeting as a resolution to be
Okay.
approved at that meeting. or
Okay, that's
potentially
all.
approved.
That's all I needed to know. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any questions from the public on this? Okay, all right, hearing none, we have a motion for it. We'll deal with that on Monday. Okay, that brings us to, on the agenda tonight, ordinance for bill number 1. And that is the adopting of the City of Lebanon zoning ordinance, dividing the City of Lebanon, Lebanon County, Pennsylvania into zoning districts with varying regulations, permitting, prohibiting, and regulating the use of land, water courses, and other bodies of water, the size, height, bulk, location, erection, construction, expansion, raising, removal of structures, as well as open areas to be left unoccupied, establishing the maximum density and intensity of uses, providing for the administration and enforcement of this ordinance in accordance to the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code as amended, including provisions for special exemption uses and variances to be administered by zoning hearing board, and establishing provisions for the protection of certain natural features. And that will be on final reading, and I will take that ordinance. Does anybody from council have any questions? We had a public hearing on this again, but no problem. Second thoughts, any questions from council on bill number 1?
My only question would be, it is a correct statement that our intention is to revisit a myriad of things, including hookah bars, bail bond shops, this Airbnb routine, and we're going to do that in July, or how quickly are we going to move on those items?
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Same question here.
That is our intention, Chris. Unless we decide, there's a lot of additional research that we would have to perform, but
Sure.
our goal would be July, August.
Well, and I'm not saying we should rush into making decisions on this, but all of these topics I think are due a little time of discernment, but the sooner we get started, the better.
I think the word here is we will do it in a timely manner.
Mhm. And if it wouldn't be for the floodplain regulations, we could have probably worked these through our initial draft.
Sure.
But because we're really under the gun
I understand.
time-wise.
Yeah,
But
just as long as we don't lose track.
Yeah, and it's not unusual. I mean, this is not like it's just a revision to our existing zoning ordinance. It's a whole new ordinance. Our zoning officer has been using it for the last couple of months to, make sure she understands the correct interpretation of terms and things like that. And that's how we noticed some things as well. So this will be good that we can, use this month and hopefully put something together again for July, August, or worst case scenario, August, September, but definitely something that we want to keep on top of and get that, underway.
Wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from council concerning bill number 1? Any questions from the media?
No.
Any questions from the public?
No.
Okay, thank you. That completes the formal part of our pre-council meeting tonight. Does anyone from city council have anything to share for the good of the city? Questions or concerns?
I do, as always, Mayor. I'm just going to go through them as quickly as possible. Some people had contacted me. My first one is personal, and you know that we had talked about Stavers, and I didn't have a chance to go up there to check on that hill situation where it comes down to the dam. Can you tell me what the status is of the repairs to that?
Maybe Robin would know if it's finished yet, but I can tell you that you know, we had a discussion with the public works crew and my office, and the trail really is more meant for like mountain biking, not tandem biking, and so we're going to be putting up signs advising people of that so they know that. We're also going to be putting up signs to talk about sharing the path because it's more of a natural path and it's been like that for more than 50 years. There could be some narrow areas where you had explained your concerns were going around a turn, there was a bush and you were on a bike and there was a lady walking or running. So we'll be talking about sharing the path, and there may be times where you went down that hill right at the dam breast. You really probably shouldn't go down in a bike. So we'll be putting up a sign that talks about getting off of your bike and walking the bike down.
Thank you.
So
yeah, there's no way to tell when you're coming up on it because it just happens so fast. So that would be good. Thank you.
So we're trying to do some things that, you know, there'll be a couple $100 worth of cost, but we're hoping for public safety that's something that, you know, although we did basically cut everything from the budget for this year for right now, but that's something that, you know, for public safety, we would want to take care of that. We're also putting up some new directional signs to address another comment that a nearby resident had about people using Stavers Dam Park more, which we love to hear that, and coming into a dead end area and then having to turn around in her driveway. So we're going to be putting up better directional signage to help with that case. But Robin, are you aware if the crew was able to take care of that washout along? And that's something that continually happens because of the steepness of the grade. They keep putting, and that's why there's like large rock there to try and help with that. But we're trying to look to see if there's something better that we can do. But I think, you know, Robin, if you want to, what you know.
Yeah, I know that the guys had been out and have taken a look to see the areas that were marked, what they can do to make it better. If there's other material we can contemplate. There's some repairs that are just going to have to wait until the funding's available. But as the mayor's already stated, we're going to do the short-term repairs and fixes and signage to take care of the immediate problems.
Okay, that's good. I mean, I appreciate that. If a sign had been there, I would have known to get off. So, all right, a couple bruises, but we're okay. So my next question is, a friend had said that at the recycling center, she was just wondering, is that a smoke-free facility because the attendant was smoking? She has breathing issues and it was 9:30 in the morning. So she was just wondering, what are the regulations about employees smoking at the recycling center?
That has been addressed as well with the attendant. I've worked with him the last 2 Saturdays, so we've been doing a lot of modifications. So that has also been taken care of. Smoking is not permitted on city property.
Okay, good. Thank you. The other one was, Mayor, I think you and Melissa both got an email today, but I was asked to just follow up. I know that you just got it, but I'm just asking about the progressive playground and the mosaic mural. Is that going to be able to happen this summer? And if so, she would need the key and something about paying a deposit to get the space. Can you tell me a little bit about the status of the mosaic tile mural?
I didn't hear your last part. Paying, did you say deposit?
She said, can I pay the deposit to get the key to check out the space? That's what she had asked me. I wasn't aware that we
key
needed
deposit.
to pay a
We charge $25 key deposit. So.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Okay. So, I mean, is that still going to be able to happen this summer?
So do you
and
know,
what can we do?
So do you know how many participants, and maybe Melissa, you already gathered some information on this? I'm not sure because we haven't had an opportunity to talk. I've had back-to-backs today. Do you have any information, Melissa?
She did not provide any information on how many people would be there. I'm looking at her email now. She just said about, you know, being able to do it there and using the building. and about a water source in the bathrooms. So
Okay.
I'll email her back and just try to find out the amount of people.
Okay, so maybe the
Okay.
time period, the
But-
number of people and.
Yeah.
And I
I'll-
think the other issue was, is there anything with the current COVID situation that would prevent them from being able to do the mural?
Well, I mean, it's a gathering, so right now we're limited.
Right.
You know, now tomorrow, I don't know if the governor will take us to the green or if we'll remain in yellow. But we're
Okay.
trying to follow those guidelines.
Okay, so just stay tuned. All right. Thank you for taking care of the graffiti on Oak Street between Cherry and 4th. The hospitals is still a little bit visible, but the other one is completely gone. So whatever the county uses is super effective. So thank you for taking care of that. The other things were, someone had asked, and I think this was already taken care of, but I'm just going to bring it up because someone did ask me to. The officers at the protest, they weren't wearing masks. So she just asked, are they required to wear masks? Because we are still in yellow. I myself have seen officers since then wearing masks. I saw an accident and they were wearing them. I had to come to the courthouse and they were standing outside wearing them. So, I mean, I'm going to assume that you talked to them and that it's happening now, but I'll let you answer.
So our officers have been wearing masks. They were issued face coverings on that particular day for that particular detail. They were, it was recommended that they not wear them because the face coverings that they had could have been grabbed around the neck and they could have been pulled down. So it was a decision that the chief had made for, if you want to call it part of the tactical response. He thought for their own personal safety, because we had issued the chief, if you want to, what are they called?
It's a buff.
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 We had issued buffs because we thought it was easier for the officer to put up and down instead of the mask. But unfortunately, we weren't sure what would happen that day, and the chief thought it was a safety hazard for the police officers, and that is why on that day, the majority of them did not have that. Some of them had.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. And then the other one was the same person. She had asked the chief, and again, chief, I'm just asking on her behalf. It was reported that you said, I stand for what I believe in, which was sort of an ambiguous statement. So some people had asked me if you would be willing to explain what you had meant when you said that.
I don't know that it's that ambiguous. I stand for what I believe in. And I've always, I've been raised that way. You stand up to bullies, you stand up for what you believe in. And that day it was my personal and professional decision to not kneel in that group. It's difficult to kneel in front of a group that just moments earlier is saying F the police. So that was my choice, it was my decision, and I do stand by it.
Okay, thank you for answering. Let's see. I think that is all I have for right now. Oh, actually, there was one more thing. Chief, this is for you as well. So as a result of all of the protests, nationwide and statewide, we're looking at reforming policing policies. What is our force doing in that vein as far as looking at policing, maybe code of conduct policies or professional development? And, as a teacher, I, several years ago with the Sandusky case, that was a terrible thing that happened, and that sparked a lot of revisions to mandates for people who are involved working with children. We have to do yearly trainings now. We are now mandated reporters, not only of people like parents who might be abusing children, but also colleagues. I now have to get my fingerprints done more often. I have to get background checks done more often. So this does happen, when there is such a large outcry. So I'm not saying this to say that there's any sort of misconduct happening in our force, but I think that this is the responsible thing that we just tend to do in society when something of this magnitude happens. And I think it's something that we need to do. So I was just wondering if you could enlighten us about some of the measures that you guys are taking to to make sure that we here in Lebanon make sure that we are maintaining our good status.
So I think, Amy, as you're aware, we have two attendees here at the council meeting that want to talk about those same issues. So I'm not sure if we just want to wait until we address what their questions are, but I can tell you just very quickly, the chief and I have participated in the racial or anti-racism workshops that were facilitated by Ali Parado from SARC, Dr. Bartley, Amare was a facilitator in that workshop as well as several other people. And the workshops were great. We wanted to listen and learn more and get enlightened with those. But at the same time, even prior to starting those workshops, we were already discussing and I came up with some commitments to racial equity that we'll be putting out. We, you know, I'm very proud of our police department. We are already, I believe, in looking at our policies, which we do on a biannual basis, but we're very fortunate in Lebanon City that we're ahead of the curve. Many of the items that I believe Brittany Hilton may be bringing up that were in her petition have already been addressed. We already have been doing them for many, many years. Now there's always room for improvement, and those are things that we'll be looking at. There are several organizations and individuals that have already reached out to me that would like to meet, and the city, of course, is would like to start a dialogue with these organizations and individuals that are interested in learning more. What we'd like to do is we'd like to show the public. I mean, I'm very, like I said, I think that we're ahead of the curve. We've had a lot of, you know, our use of force policy, which I have that right here, hard to see. We have a bias based policing policy that's been in effect again for years. So
good.
Without
good.
stepping on what Brittany would perhaps like to talk about, you know, I really do believe that we're ahead of the curve, but again, always room for improvement. But
Yeah.
I think we do a great job here in Lebanon City.
No, and I appreciate that. And I'm not in any way insinuating that we are not. I was just wondering and asking for my knowledge, you know. I also did attend the anti-racism workshop. I was in the Wednesday, Friday class, and it was really well done. Mayor, would you support council attending if they were to do another series?
I think that's up to, you know, individuals, but yes, I would. I actually said
Yeah,
to,
it was well done.
I said to Katie, who was the facilitator on a lot of my small group breakouts, she works with Ali. I commended her for what all of the facilitators were able to put together in a very short period of time. And I said,
yeah, like 10 days. It was like 10 days. It was awesome. Yeah.
Unfortunately, in our group, there were only 37 participants, and that included the facilitators. You know, I don't know how many participants were in your group, but I mean, just in the city alone, we have almost, you know, 26,000 residents. So,
yeah,
and then you talk about the whole
they
county.
Had to put a cap. They had to put a cap on it. So I think that they are planning on doing more. I think because they have so few facilitators to do breakout groups, you want to have a smaller group so you have good discussion.
Right.
So I'm glad that they're going to be doing more.
I understand that. And I just suggested to them that they hold more of them, or, you know, maybe once we get out of the COVID situation, you know, they rent and have a, you know, kind of like Dr. Bartley did at Hack with,
oh yeah, that's a good idea.
But I mean, as long as we're talking and we respect each other and we're moving forward, I think we're on the right path. So I would suggest it for anyone that wants to learn more and be enlightened and, you know, being a part of the community. So.
Absolutely. And then I had seen that you held up a couple of our conduct policies. Is that something that you would be able to share with us as council for review? Or is that available online anywhere?
It's not available online, and that's something that we are looking at what would be part of public record and what isn't, and that's something that we'll have a dialogue on. But I can't really comment on it right now. I'm just not prepared.
Thank you for looking into it. Thank you for looking into it.
You're welcome.
Okay, and I think that, let me just look really quick back through my notes. I think that's it. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else from council have anything to share? Any questions or anything good for the city? Okay, hearing none. Is there any questions or comments from the media?
I'm not sure he's even on anymore. I think he's gone.
Gone?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Okay,
You're
anyone from the public that would like to share anything for the good of the city?
So Amari had registered first, so if Mari would like to talk. Yes. So Amari,
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the opportunity. Can you guys listen to me?
yes.
Awesome, awesome. So my name is Amari Abreu. I was one of the facilitators for the anti-racism workshop, and I have to say thank you for and to the mayor and the chief of police for being part of it. I was able to be in one of the small groups with the chief of police, and I appreciated his insights. My only question is basically, is there anything specifically, and I was glad that you share all the policies that you guys already have when it comes to the police locally, in the local level, but I want to know, is there anything else that you guys are planning on doing when it comes to anti-racism work within the community? And if so, what will that be?
Okay, so as you're aware, as being a facilitator of the anti-racism workshop, Allie had put out a request to have follow-up, what she's calling the 777. So what are you planning on doing within 7 days, 7 weeks, and 7 months? So some of the things, excuse me. So I can like briefly tell you some of the things that we have kind of jotted down on a list. So again, as I indicated just a few minutes ago, prior to actually attending the workshop, I had done some research, based on what was happening just in our society as a whole, things that were related to the protests, which I was so glad I felt that it was very successful. But I made a commitment to racial equity and drafted a list of my written commitments for the city of Lebanon. So that is something that I finalized, but actually today I saw 1 or 2 more things that I'd like to add to it. So I keep tweaking it, but I will have that to put out within my 7 days. Also, our goal when we attended the workshop for the chief and I was to listen and to learn. And one of the, I think the key points in the workshop was that you're always open and you're always trying to make yourself better and to better understand, and that your opinions are always going to change with new information, and that it's a learning process, and that we shouldn't be afraid to learn and to be a part of that process. So I think we both recognize that there's a lot more to learn, but it's a start, and we were proud to be a part of that start. So we would continue our research, reading and just participating in conversations. I also reached out to crisis intervention to possibly start a conversation with them about partnering with crisis for crisis intervention training. Now, that would include de-escalation for mentally ill residents as a part of our annual officer training. Some of our officers have already had this specific training, but we want all of our officers to have that and to have it on a more consistent basis. So that is something that we're going to have a meeting with Brenda Sarconi within 7 weeks. We're also going to review our use of force policy. And for sure, we're going to be adding the requirement, if it's not already in, I need to double check that because I thought today I saw it. But we were thinking it wasn't in, but to stop any excessive, if another officer sees an officer using excessive force, that he would have a duty to intervene. So that is something that if it's not in the use of force policy, we will be adding. But again, we want to take a more thorough look at that policy, our the bias policy. We also, earlier this year, before all of this kind of came to light, we had sensitivity training for every single employee. That's something that I want to do on an annual basis as well, and I want to add that to my commitment. So meeting with Brenda and meeting with the chief and looking at our policies, that's something that we would like to do within 7 months. There are some things like intervening, we could shorten that to the 7-week period of time. I also want it to be a requirement, and this would be within 7 days, that I be informed of any complaints that are lodged against an officer, and that I be advised of the results of the investigation. Again, like I indicated earlier, we're open for discussion with our community members. I feel like we've always had an open dialogue, but we want to do something more formally. And that is something that we are going to try and schedule within the next 7 weeks. And then my last item is we want to look for new ways to encourage and empower residents in our neighborhoods. So that's something that we'll look into and fine tune exactly what that means, probably within the 7-month period of time. So my 777 is taking action, and that's what we're proposing at this moment in time, Amari.
Thank you,
So
Mayor.
thank you for helping us get there.
Okay, thank you for coming, sir. Is there anyone else in the public that has anything to share?
I believe Brittany. Brittany, can you hear us? Sometimes it takes a minute.
She's on, but she's muted.
Yeah, you need to unmute.
Hello?
There you go. Now we can hear you.
I apologize. I had to do it by phone. This is my first time. Yes, thank you for answering all those questions, Mayor. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate the council being here to hear this. I'm glad to know that some of those policies are already on place that are in the petition. Like you said, it isn't transparent. I couldn't find any of our contact policies online. So I believe that transparency is key into having trust with the community as far as our department goes and the community. So making those conduct rules more transparent, I believe, is one way to start that trust. It's good to hear about the bias training, and I'm glad to hear the anti-racism talks are going well. I also would like to suggest trauma-informed care with mental health. Our prison population, it is proving that ACE, which is adverse childhood experiences, are common in people who are in prison. So trauma-informed care, which I'm sure Brenda has talked about, will be key to any players in schools, in the police force, and our politicians. It's much better to get a background of why these issues are happening instead of stopping the issues as a symptom. We need to look at the cause. So those are some things I wanted to bring up that haven't been spoken about, and I'm glad to hear the other things that are going to happen.
And if I can just jump in, Brittany, because you mentioned something really important, and this actually really touched my heart, and I didn't realize they were doing it. But Compass Mart, they're supporting children of incarcerated parents. And it's in their newsletter this month, and it's about kids serving the silent sentence to find help and hope. And I'm trying to find the late Lindsay Ober. She's Compass Mart's family services advocate. Now that's actually in Lancaster County, but Compass Mart is for Lancaster and Lebanon County. And it talks about some of the programs that she established to help these children. And it was really touching. And I actually was so proud of Compass Mart. I want to reach out to them and let them know that I just think that's an excellent program. And I guess that would be one of the things that I'd also like to add, like in some of the bullet points on your petition, which we will definitely make sure that we address all those bullet points with you, Brittany, and with the public, because that's important to us. But one of the things talks a lot about social services, and that's something that the City of Lebanon local government doesn't control. We have no control over that. That's county and state functions. But those are, again, things that when we have our meeting and we meet face to face and can go over these things, that we can discuss those in more detail. But I just wanted to give a shout out to Compass Mart.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's awesome. And I worked with youth advocate programs, and I know our probation system in Lebanon County is great with working with advocates, and it's proven that if one child has a good connection, that that child is more likely to graduate, that child is more likely to be a productive member of society. And that's what we need to see in order to keep people out of prison. And while I was researching stuff, I saw that Lebanon County is actually in the top 5 counties for putting people into prison as far as per 1,000. So
Uh-oh, we lost her.
Yeah.
I guess
She was on
we'll give
the
her-
phone, wasn't she?
Yeah, we'll give her a minute to see if she
Yeah,
calls.
sure.
There she is.
hello?
Yes, we got you back now. So the last thing we heard was that Lebanon was one of the top 5 counties for putting people in jail.
Yes, and to jail per 1,000 people. So that's not something we want to be known as in Lebanon County. And you guys know about the Tory Hair story, the person who had dreadlocks. They just announced from the PA Supreme Court that you can have medical marijuana if you're on probation. So those are things that we don't want Lebanon County to be known for. So I'm really glad to hear these things that will be happening. That's proactive. The governor's already talking about it, but I'm glad you guys are talking about it as well.
And some of those things, just, to be transparent here and honest, some of those things we have no control over. But the things that we have control over, those are things that we can definitely look at.
I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Okay. Does anyone else have anything else they'd like to share for the good of the city?
Wayne, I'd just like to ask the chief a question.
Sure.
Today when I was leaving to come to the meeting, there were 8 to 10 youths riding against traffic on Cumberland Street doing wheelies, and none of them had helmets. And I saw them later heading north on 12th Street, and again popping wheelies, weaving in and out of traffic. I just hope this doesn't happen, that they're going to have an accident, or somebody's going to be hit by a truck or a car. And it's a real concern of mine right now. And I don't know if the officers are doing, if there's anything that can be done, but it's really a concern of mine. I see it pretty almost regularly in downtown.
Thank you, Richard. I too shared just yesterday on Chestnut Street. I had 2 boys with wheelies come right up to the front, practically right up the front of my car, and I just about stopped, and they're not kids. They're kids, but they're not, these are young teenagers.
Young teens.
Yeah.
But my concern is, if they have
they're
contact with a vehicle, they're going to lose.
Yeah, they're going to,
and
they don't have any control while they're doing that, and they could easily plow right in there.
My concern is, my concern is that this is going to be something bad it's eventually going to come to happen.
So briefly, as you know, last year we did a pretty good job at limiting that amount of activity. The year prior was when we had a lot of the issue with groups of kids on bikes, but last year wasn't horrible. So we'll put some more focused patrols out and some directed patrols and try to address the issue. But as you all know, a patrol car trying to catch a group of kids on a bike is difficult to do. But we've done it in the past. We'll continue to try to make efforts to do it in as safe a manner as what we possibly can.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Chief. We appreciate the job all you guys do.
So Pam, we were going to give you an opportunity to talk because you've been on enough of these meetings and you haven't said a word. So at least say hi.
Good afternoon.
Hey, Pam.
Hi, Pam.
Hi,
Thank
Pam.
you for listening.
Okay, is there anybody else, anything else for the good of the city? Going, gone. Okay, this meeting is
All right.
adjourned. Everyone have a
Thank you,
wonderful
everyone.
evening. We're going to see you on Monday at 6:30. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you,
Chair.
everybody.
See you.
Thanks again.